My fellow barbarians, welcome. Today on the show, we have Matt John of Monolith Games here to talk all about the new Conan RPG. If you're a fan of RPGs, or if you're someone that wants to get into RPGs, but you're a little too intimidated, this game is for you. It was designed to be easy to play, and on top of all that, it is chock full of Hyborian Age Easter eggs. And if you're interested in the Conan RPG, there is a link in the description so you can get in on that Kickstarter. Do us a favor, like and subscribe. At the very end of this podcast, Matt's going to do a demonstration of the game and show you how easy and fun it is to play. And without further ado, Matt John. So this is a question we ask everybody. How did you first discover Conan?
It's hard for me to narrow down precisely, but it is either Conan the Destroyer, the film, or it is, I might have first seen, it's really just my earliest memories. And one was Conan the Destroyer. And then the other was Conan the Barbarian issue 101, which was the issue after Bélip died. And Conan is on a log and he's wrestling with this Cushite and a spear. And down below, there's this crazy looking spider rendered by John Buscema. And that image stuck in my head like nothing else. I remember just being in my grandfather's cottage, walking out to the wharf on like the little gangplank with a big stick in my hand, reenacting that vivid scene on the cover. So that got its hooks in me early, and goddamn, I've not been the same.
How did you become involved with Monolith Games?
I mean, I played D&D second ed growing up, invited to my uncle's games that he was running. I was in elementary school. My brother and his friends were older, and I think they took it for granted, right? The idea that like, yeah, it's a D&D, that's what you do in the late 80s, it's fine. Me, I was like, oh my God, what is this? Look at this artwork. What? We're using our imagination. There's miniatures. So I was a super excited kid. And so I was always playing, and, HeroQuest is a gateway game and things like that, which was heavily steeped in Conan imagery. So growing up, I would never have imagined I got to work on these things, but through the power of social media, I ended up getting the hookup via Facebook, really. I had a group back, I still run the group. It is called Conan Gaming Group. And around the time I was running that group, I don't know, I probably had it up for a year or two before, the Monolith launched the Conan board game for Kickstarter, which was massive at the time. It was like one of the big record setters that kind of made things go crazy on Kickstarter. So that was happening. And then shortly after, the Modiphius RPG was launched. And so I'm kind of on the ground level with these publishers wanting to use the Facebook group to kind of promo and stuff. Cause of course, I had gotten a prototype of the board game just to do some fan scenarios because they had offered that out. So they wanted to give it to me. And so when Modiphius did the role-playing game, they wanted to do a crossover book for the board game. This is before the board game even shipped. Okay. So all of this stuff exists only in, it was all in development and production and stuff. I said, look, if you need help with this crossover book you want to do, I don't know who's doing it, but I've got a prototype, so I could do some work on it. Chris Birch, at Modiphius then offered me, he was like, well, do you want to do the book? And I was like, yeah, okay. We're not ready for that. And yeah, I did. I ended up writing most of that book. I put an insane amount of time. I cut my teeth in a lot of ways with it. And I wrote like almost 20 scenarios for the board game that went in, which is insane. I wouldn't do that now. You'd have to pay me a lot, and I even developed a subsystem, the solo co-op system for it. So like it was a tremendous amount of work that as a young, hungry person who wanted their foot in the door, I mean, I went nuts on it. But, that's kind of how I got in from there. And then Fred Henry at Monolith, he flew me over to Paris and was like, yo, do you want to work with us? I had never been to Europe. And so that was my first, and I went on like a weekend. I took a day from my day job without pay so I could get there. So I fly to Paris for the weekend and then fly back. I mean, it was awesome. Look, Fred Henry is an amazing dude. He's super passionate. He's like a mad wizard of sorts with his game design and his ideas. And he's put a lot of trust and faith in me, to do this. And, you know, he basically as soon as I saw him, he, you know, shook hands, did that French thing where they kiss you on either side of the cheek. You know, and he put a Monolith hoodie on my back and that was that, man. Eventually I got to working on, I was going to do more community management stuff, and I did for a little, and I still kind of do in a small capacity, but I ended up pivoting to design and, the more creative aspects, game development, and, yeah, man, the shoe fits. I love it.
How does your system let players experience high stakes combat without bogging them down with complex rules?
I mean, that was basically my design challenge entirely, is that we have had Conan RPGs in the past. We've had some even rather recently, like the Modiphius game was about 10 years ago that was sold, which that's not that of a short window, but it also took like 5 years to ship out. And so it feels somewhat, you know, still fresh in people's minds. So I had to consider a lot of things, like we're doing a new Conan RPG. What is ours going to be? And so I addressed this as a player and what I would want. I have played most of the Conan RPGs ever done. And I approach this as a 40-year-old gamer. I do not want a system that requires me to do a lot of homework because I'm busy and have a bunch of other things to do. So, I have more so, I skew to more so rules light RPGs. And so with this, I wanted to streamline everything. The Modiphius game has a lot of fans. People like it. It is not a system that I much enjoyed playing. And I'm saying that as someone who worked on 3 of the books for that game. The system itself it's not a system I have time for as a gamer. It requires a lot of investment in terms of learning those rules, playing them out, and your nose is going to be in the rule book for a good long time. That is a absolutely viable way to game. It's just not to me, it's not sword and sorcery when I can't just jump in and start hacking things down rather quickly. Some RPGs skew to more like a simulator. Some have a lot of rules and a lot of meat on the bone, and players want that. And I totally get it. It's that for Conan, we needed to have a game that was more so rules light. And I wanted one that felt visceral, quick, and almost snap decision like, in the same way that our Conan board game did. So everything I did with this design brief was to consider the fact that we have about, 60,000 people who purchased this board game, many of whom still play it regularly, love it. Every time we launch a new campaign, we're like dropping $1 million, raising $1 million just on an expansion, which is showing it's still very much desired. So when I went to design this system, I wanted it to be, I just streamline all of the stuff so we don't have to have a bunch of subsystems and we can get right to the point. So, the way we really do that is 4 stats. Okay. I wanted it to make it as few stats as possible. And I also wanted it to be mechanically familiar to people. So, basically it's you use your stats to determine whether you can accomplish things, and whether that is climbing a wall, whether that is casting a spell, whether that is swinging a sword. All of those are governed by the same concept. Add the stat die, roll them together, compare it to your enemy's defense, or however difficult the challenge is. Pretty basic RPG stuff, but I wanted something familiar, elegant, and that would just get the hell out of the way, let you feel empowered as a player, and let GMs run it easily, smoothly. And if you don't have any time to prep, you need about 10 minutes for any one of our tales and you can run this thing.
What kind of wild, pulpy adventures can DMs and players expect to craft together?
The choice you make at the beginning kind of puts you in a direction, right? In previous games. With ours, you start with an origin that basically says where you're, not even the nation that you're from. but like your situation. So some of these, what we might call classes, their origins are like you're from the hills, or you're from the north, or you're from a civilized land, or you are from parts unknown. All it really does is say, from where did you hail? And you don't even necessarily need to say the nation. It's essentially looking at that dichotomy in Howard's works with civilization versus barbarism. A lot of these things are more so barbaric, and some people are from the streets. So if you were born into civilization, or you are like a perfumed fop type, and you just have high charisma, and then you learn spells, but maybe you're just a guy who does political machinations. Like that's whatever you want to do. The point is, you choose that starting package, and it does not really limit you in terms of where you go from there. You get a few little runes to start. I actually have playing a lot of Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Demon Souls when I started developing this, and I freaking love the idea that in that game, you just basically choose your little starting point, and then from there, you're not locked in. You can basically go in the directions that you want. And to me, that's what a Conan game really should offer. The only limitations we really set was that your origin will determine what kind of sorcery you can do, if at all. So you kind of have to make that decision early on. And it would allow you to kind of choose from these categories of spells. Okay. So sorcery in this game, you can access these things if you have the background for it, but you have to basically purchase them one by one, the spells that you want. So it's that idea of like a sorcerer has to go out and seek things out. Maybe you have to talk to a demon to get this spell. Maybe you learn it. Maybe it's alchemy, right? That's one of our categories. Alchemy, black magic, white magic, necromantic, demonic. I think that's it. Some people were giving crap about how, with the quick start to like black magic and white magic. Conan doesn't have white magic. And I was like, except that that's exactly what Robert E. Howard called it in some of the stories. So yes, he does. Sorry, you're wrong.
Can you give us a taste of how magic works in this game?
So most of the magic in this game is pretty vile. And I've also kind of made it a little bit abstract, right? We title a spell. We tell you how it works and what you have to spend to do it. But we don't get too deep into, to use this spell, you must call on these gods. And when that occurs, they say, we're kind of just like, we don't know how the magic works in this game. So we're kind of telling you mechanically how it does. And the GM can explain this or that if they want. But some of them, there's a few gross spell, like we have one called Lotus Miasma. And this is essentially a spell that a sorcerer can cast and screw over everyone around them, including allies. There's another one too, where it's like beast form, which kind of speaks to how you have shape changers and things like that in Howard's fiction. The thing I like most about our magic is I like that it's streamlined and that it's clear how to do it, same as you resolve other skills. But how you power it in this game is either with your life points, as in you spend hit points to use spells, as in risk versus reward, you have to kind of drain yourself to do it, or you can spend your stamina points, which are it's a little meta currency that we have that allows us to kind of do that thing in the Conan board game where you're like, ooh, should I spend this gem to do this extra thing so I can get it done? So in this game, you can burn those to do spells as well. Essentially, it's like it takes a physical toll on you to do it. So yeah, the magic's a bit nuts. There's some spells I deliberately left out. Things like draw forth of the harp, that we see in, People of the Black Circle. I've basically penciled in things for down the road. Essentially when we get to certain places or, we want a higher level rockin' disgusting magic. And some of it too, we even have spells that have like little role play things. So you don't actually have to spend anything to do it. It's just, you can actually, like one of them is, you can kind of listen in on a conversation. You can hear what's going on. You don't have to cast anything to do it. It's just this weird innate ability. So we made sure the sorcery takes work in that if you want to be a sorcerer, yeah, man, you've got to plot a little bit. You're a little squishy. But that's kind of how it is we don't really have big time battle sorcerers. You can point your guy in that direction, and it can be viable. It's just depends how you want to spend it.
In this game, what is the most outrageous feat a player can achieve that really captures that larger than life Conan feel?
So what we try to do with these tales is present scenarios that feel very Robert E. Howard Conan. Okay. All of our authors who pen these, many of whom are, Emmy award winning folks with much more, clout than I, but many of them were some really strong writers from the Modiphius line as well. So we got Jason Durrell, we got Richard August, who's freaking amazing. And just a bunch of other guys that our project manager, guys and gals that our project manager, Chris, brought on. So a lot of that stuff in terms of outwitting is about what you put in these tales for options. So sometimes players don't like the idea of a pre-gen because it sometimes robs players of agency, or it feels a little on rails, right? Like I kind of said, look, man, we're adapting sword and sorcery stories here. So I think the storytelling and the plots and the arcs matters. It's not a sandbox game. That said, we did commission a bunch of tales that are more sandboxy, that players can kind of just do open play. And GMs can, when you want to write your own, you do whatever you want. But I guess what I'll say is, to answer that question, how do we do things like that like these tales all have things baked in where players have to make choices. And there's all kinds of where it's like, you don't have to slaughter these guys. You could probably use your reputation or, kick the hell out of that guy. So all these other guys see that, oh shit, I guess I should probably follow this dude or he's going to crack my skull too.
Conan stories often feature Conan outsmarting his enemies. How does this system encourage problem solving beyond just hack and slash?
I was absolutely dead set on this combat feeling good, being fast, and without a lot of constraints. Of course you have to have rules that govern this, but I made it so that when you're in combat, you have by default 2 actions. This is before you progress your character because you might be able to get more of certain types. But I didn't want it to be like, you can make 1 attack and 1 movement or 1 manipulation or whatever. No. I was like, well, you get 2 actions. You want to attack twice, go for it. You want to move twice, go for it. You want to mix and match. So with this, you can kind of fly around the board fairly well. You can spend stamina to move extra. And sometimes you might not want to attack at all. You just might want to defend yourself. There's a lot of options as far as what each player can do in a round. But an example would be, one way that you can just really clean house is we have a minion system in this game, right? Because this is another thing that used to drive me nuts in my late years of GMing. Tracking hit points for goblins. No, I'm not doing that. I freaking hate that. So our big bads, our antagonist characters, or significant things like a dragon is going to have life points, right? You got to hack this thing for a while. But minions are something that can be dropped rather quickly. So most of those go down with 1 hit, and they are given kind of a little threshold number. So say this Pict has a threshold of 4. As long as you do 4 damage to him, he's dead automatically. If you don't, any subsequent hit will kill him. So what you can do is, I wanted just things to fall. I look at a Frazetta painting with those piles of bodies, and that's what I wanted to do here. And indeed, when we tested this with miniatures, which you don't require but are rather fun to use, we saw those piles just because these minions are getting slaughtered, and are only really a huge danger once you get enough of them. But you can build your character in such a way so that you take a skill, one skill I have here is called Murderous Frenzy, right? So let's say, for example, in my turn, I decide to make 2 attacks. Well, I attack one guy and I kill him. Then the skill I have, Murderous Frenzy, allows me to kill another minion that's near him automatically. Okay, cool. So that's 2 dead. I'm going to make a second attack. You drop another guy, you kill him, then you drop another guy because you have this feat. So in a single round, one dude drops 4 picks. You're feeling pretty good about it, right? And there's like, there's skills can stack, so you can end up charging in and like doing all this damage. And I mean, yeah, this game, the Blood and Thunder is it's bountiful.
How do you handle character progression?
This is a game like RPGs. We often I think we have this romantic notion of, I want to have a campaign that runs for literal years of real time and, get to level 20 and be this legend in the land. And like, that's cool. Most of those things don't actually happen. You get a few sessions down and that's that. I've kind of designed this one, not one shot in nature, but as it's dictated by the tales. It's like, what do we got? 20 Conan stories, 18 that are finished or something. I kind of looked at this where perhaps a campaign that somebody runs, we kind of go for that 20 session or those 20 tales adventures. That's what Conan had. Those were probably the biggest beats in his life where all the weird elements came in. So let's say, for example, our player characters have a trajectory of like 20 sessions. And then at the end, you pretty much are King Conan. You've got your progression to the point where you've spent XP and skills and you have become a serious badass capable of, casting horrible sorcery, enduring incredible pain and punishment, or someone who can just lop heads off 4 or 5 in a round. So it's buffet style. A character, you get your origin, you get a few little boons from that at the beginning, and then you're off. You get experience points from each tale. So essentially, experience points and the progression are tied to tales, which we provide a ton of pre-gen tales. But of course, GMs who want to just go on their own and make their own, you just kind of look at your gameplay sessions as being either one tale or you play through a tale in a few sessions. You reward XP based on completing them. And you will award bonus XP. There's all kinds of little elements baked in where it's like, well, if you did this, you can get slightly, an extra XP or what have you. And then, my friend, you can spend those XP however you like in our skills. And so the skills can be anything from a charge attack, an impaling throw, a spell that you want to unlock. It could be make yourself tougher. It can be something like, we have this one called Waterfront Fists, which is a Steve Costigan reference, which basically is like, you're badass with just your bare hands, right? So it's buffet style in that you look over this in true, like, sort of board game fashion. You're like, how do I want to upgrade this guy? What kind of cool little attacks do I want that are going to feel good? Or maybe I don't want attacks at all. Maybe I want to be someone who can really defend himself. Or maybe I want to be someone who buys all these things so I can upgrade my flexibility die so that I'm more likely to do power attacks or get my stamina back each round. So the progression is actually the thing I'm most proud of in this game is that you can go in whatever direction you want. And a lot of, maybe you play this for 20 sessions. Maybe you start this and the GM is like, look, you guys are well established. Here's 20 experience points. Build your character how you want. We're going to play 3 sessions and then that's that. The fun you will have just designing a character to sort of lean into particular directions and test them out. I mean, it's a ton of fun.
Matt, walk us through a typical session.
I was, with our design team, I was very adamant that I wanted a lot of these to start in media res. I wanted them to start like a lot of Conan stories do. Maybe your PCs are walking through the desert, but where's my special sword I had last session? You don't have it. You don't have special swords in this game. You have weapons capable of killing. You don't get a +1 sword or a +2 sword. You're not collecting that crap. You are the weapon, right? So sometimes you will start where you don't have a lot of options. You are actually, maybe you're enslaved at this point. Maybe you just need to get the hell out, right? So we begin they begin in various places. Sometimes it's far more simple. You're literally in a tavern. You do what you like. Here's something you overheard, right? Think of the beginning of Power of the Elephant. Conan's hearing a rumor. Ooh, there we go. And then in other ones, yeah, like what is it? Zuthal of the Dusk. He's wandering through that desert with the girl, and he's got no water left. Can go in either direction. What I wanted was sword and sorcery stories. I wanted things that started immediately and made the characters choose something. Forward momentum was the order. Move this shit along. None of this, okay, so you go into a town. What do? Do you talk to people? No. Force a decision on the characters immediately. And most of these tales will. I'm not saying you can't have a session where you have downtime and choose to purchase things or that's fine. However you want to play it. The rules are there for that. But this is about let's move it. Let's force people into action. So a typical session you'll open up, you have a little scenario. There's all kinds of little quick blurbs to read to set the scene. And then there's usually some kind of arc. What's the point here? What are you trying to get? Are you trying to get treasure? Are you trying to get your freedom? Are you trying to kill this wizard? Are you after revenge? It could be any of those things. And essentially, once you get to the other side of it, you'll get your XP. Sometimes it's just get the hell out. There is a demon from another world. You don't have to fight it. Escape with your skin or with a piece of your scalp removed like poor Conan does sometimes, right? So, yeah. Usually it's, there's key NPCs, right? You have characters. And then with our GM screen that we sell, there's also a GM kit that essentially allows you to generate these tales real quick. But this is a game about forward momentum, mercenary type characters, morally ambiguous. This is not go rescue a town because it's the right thing to do. I mean, shit, even in Beyond the Black River, they were unsuccessful. Conan was just a badass running around the woods, knowing how to run around the woods, and the Picts swarmed all over. It's not you must save no, that's not what we're doing here. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's really it. And, I guess it depends whether the GM is, written his own tale or the GM is, you can ad lib too if you're adept, but the pre-gens very much drop you into the action most times. And there's some really goddamn good ones in this.
I'm a huge fan of creatures, and the Hyborian Age is loaded with terrifying monsters. What is the most terrifying creature you've designed for this game? And how does facing it challenge players?
With this, we're trying to be fairly canon, in terms of, there's not going to be orcs bopping around here or anything. And I say that, but we also are very happy to put Easter eggs for other Conan media. Okay. The idea was keep it Howard, but add some Easter eggs and some flourishes from other things, but don't contradict Howard, basically. So I'm a huge fan of the Conan movie, and so I have all kinds of winks and things like that. For our initial offering, the way we do monsters is in our core book, there's tons. A lot of them ripped straight from the pages of Howard stories. And then our pre-gen tales will all contain unique profiles for NPCs, monsters, and stuff like that too, which actually makes it super convenient when you're running this game. It's just right in front of you. You're not flipping through several books. I was also adamant on that. Let's get everything in one place so players don't have to be all over the place with this. I'm like an ADHD player, literally. And so I want to make it easy for people to keep this stuff together. So as far as the monsters, I mean, you can imagine what we have. We've not used all of them yet. There's some, especially like from other Howard tales I'm waiting to use, but I'll tease a couple of things. Like we have the dragon from Red Nails. That thing is a complete ass kicker. You probably want to run or figure something out. We have a smaller version of it. We've got the famous, Howard monsters that you would be used to. We dipped into Lovecraft a bit. So I will tell you, we have deep ones in this game, or what do we call them? Anyways, they're deep ones. And And a lot of it too, we used a lot of monsters that we would have used for the board game. So folks who own our board game, oh my God, if you own the board game and you have like tons of that painted up like I do, you are going to lose your shit when you start playing this RPG and be like, oh my God, I got miniatures for that. I got miniatures for that. You don't need any of them, but man, if you're a miniatures person, you're going to love this, and you can use the boards as well. But deep ones are assholes in this. Like there's things that can kill you outright. They can drown you. And there's also a bit of a running joke with my old gaming group, and the Conan RPGs I used to run. Lions are some of the worst goddamn things to fight in this game. A lion can mess you up. So, look out for those. And then of course we have things like Thule, or sorry, that's the one I made. Like Thog, and he's basically the same, it's one of those tentacly, shadowy creatures, Thog. Because the first, the tail in our quick start, Seal of Acheron, I really wanted it to be kind of a greatest hits, feel very Conan, not reinvent the wheel, but expose people to the tropes of these kind of stories. So, man, there's some vile stuff in here. And really the sort of flow of combat in this game is, yeah, I'm whooping ass. I'm killing everyone. I'm powerful as hell. And then, what's that thing? Or, wow, that's not going down so easily. And then, Conan ends up, he's grappling Thak, or he's grappling with Thog and getting, like, things really beat the shit out of him sometimes. So players are going to get spanked as well, but also feel pretty goddamn good up until that point.
The Hyborian Age has distinct cultures and nations. How deep can players dive into all that while crafting their characters?
Jason dug in deep, and he wrote the shit out of it. It sounds amazing. And so within the core book, there's a ton of just lore content. And it's funny. I had someone reach out who's doing some of the edits and stuff and doing the translation into French. And they're like, oh my God, this is so captivating and compelling what you've done here. And I was like, yeah, I didn't do that. That was Jason. But man, it sounds good, doesn't it? Like it's a joy to read just all on its own. So I would tell any Conan fan to put that on your radar, because the book will be beautiful and it will be a sick reference. And Modifius, to their credit, they did amazing things with the lore. It was all so well done, but it was also spread out and a lot. And there was a lot of extrapolation happening, right? Like, well, we don't really know, so let's talk about this thing that we suppose probably would happen, or here's the real world. We didn't do as much of that. We basically wrote it down as we know, and we didn't go beyond. We didn't speculate deeply about, well, maybe this means. No. It's what are the facts? What do we know? And what's canon? And that's basically what we put in. We did not, I drop Easter eggs in the tales from some of the other material. But all of our gazetteer and our culture write-ups, it's all there. And I should mention too, I talked earlier about the origins, right? I say, you might choose an origin that's from the hills. Well, that could be Conan. He could be from the hills of Samaria, or you could choose from the north. Maybe that's a Vanir, or maybe that's a Sumerian too. Your origin doesn't actually dictate your race. And so you don't actually choose that in this game. You can, of course, write it down. You can be from wherever. But to me, it was more like, what are the characteristics of someone who was born in the hills, right? And so if you couple that with the geography sections, then, you can choose whatever you want.
Conan often finds himself in morally gray situations. How does your system handle the ethical dilemmas that define sword and sorcery?
Yeah. So, again, I think this is mostly comes down to what is written into the pre-gen tales. Of course, any GM can pivot, or be agile enough to roll with the punches. If a player's like, well, actually, I'm going to kill that guy. All right, cool. Well, that's your choice. Let's try it out. Let's roll for initiative. Let's do the thing. But we try to bake in a lot of things where characters have to make those decisions. In one of, I don't want to spoil it, but there's parts where it's like, look, man, someone's going to deceive you. Okay. So are you going to go through the effort to punish that bastard? Are you going to get him back? Or are you going to escape with your skin and go in another direction? In another one I wrote where the characters are essentially, they start on a boat getting pulled up onto the shore on an island of Picts called the Dragon Picts. There's a volcano there. They're going to be sacrificed. And really the mission is get the hell off of this island that you found yourself in. But holy shit, there's a duke's daughter there too. You found out from this other guy who's been hiding. Are you going to rescue her? Because if you do, there's a lot of money in this duke's pocket, right? So we try to pepper in things that have them make those choices, right? So a lot of it really just comes down to the storytelling.
For the true Howard Conan fanatics out there, can you reveal a few of the Easter eggs that players can expect to find in this game?
So one of them I mentioned, I'm happy that I used the term waterfront fists as that's sort of the core combat thing. So, I mean, there's little things like that in what we named skills. Like basically when it came to labeling, the skills for progression, I just combed through stories and I wrote down every kind of little phrase or description I thought was badass, like murderous frenzy or whatever. So you're going to notice those things pop up. We popped in some stuff with like from other Howard Tales creatures that kind of show up that that Conan didn't necessarily encounter, but are germane to the overall, continuity that Howard was working with. I mentioned a wheel of pain at one point. I don't really call it a wheel of pain, but there's a grain grinding wheel that goes in there. I know that is movie stuff and people get upset about that, but guess what? The movie is intensely popular and a good reason we're still talking about Conan today. So, deal with it. And like even just tiny things like I made a spell that's, snake arrow. Well, I mean, that's such a little iconic thing. He says, seek, he straightens that arrow out. It's sick. So like reason not to put a spell like that in the game. That's awesome. But yeah, there's all kinds of little things. I mean, the Howard's references are all over the place. You're tripping over them and, all the geography is there, but you know, we did not adapt like stories whole cloth. There's no Tower of the Elephant scenario. There's no, you choose Conan and do this. That's not the game we're making. It's more make your Hyborian age character and carve your own legend, but everything is going to feel like was spat out of Howard's fiction. So,
well, you know, it kind of begs the question, why is there not an RPG based on the 1982 Conan movie? And why are you not making it right now?
Mr. Curley, I mean, are you in any way suggesting I haven't dreamed about doing that for a long time? Listen, I have said to Monolith millions of times, I've talked to Fred Momberg as well, you know, about the viability of doing such a thing. And all I will say is that maybe Matt gets his dream to come true at some point. I'm not promising this is coming right now. I'm saying that it is something I'm very much interested in. I think the aesthetic is amazing. I think you can do it without stepping on the toes of Howard or just do it right beside it in its own different continuity. What I would actually really like to explore, rather than adapting, well, hold on. For the board game, I would be happy to adapt scenes you play as Conan and Subadai, and like that would be amazing. Would love that. I mean, really. Subadai, the Wizard, Valeria, Conan. That's 4 heroes, just saying. I would love that, and it's something that I always whisper in ears. But if it was an RPG where you're playing in John Milius and Oliver Stone's Conan world, I would want to explore that further. You know, I would want to know what happens after Thulsa Doom falls and Conan stands there and all those torches go in the water. Then what? Does he and Subadai go on to do other adventures? I don't know. I think that's really kind of interesting to think about. Like, why not do? Oh, I would love to see fiction explored in that corner of Conan. And this is not me trying to piss off the purists, guys. It's that we can have different things, especially now that we have Howard printed in pure text. We have educated the fan base. The fan base has educated itself. We got the Howard stuff. We know what that is. I think we can play around with other bits of pop culture as well. Like, why the hell not?
All right. It's no secret. You're a huge fan, perhaps the biggest fan ever of the 1982 classic Conan the Barbarian starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. What are your thoughts on that film?
I mean, the movie is, I can't separate my Conan fandom from the movie completely. And I think it always helps if you saw and enjoyed the adaptation of something before you read or saw the original, only because then you're not affected by, oh, it should have been this or it should have been that. You can take the thing on its own merits. So I'm somewhat grateful that, like, I hadn't read Howard before I saw the movie. It was actually completely eye-opening and fascinating to see what was really in those tales after the movie, being like, oh my God, this is more like what Conan is. There's only a few elements in the movie that I feel are like, Conan wouldn't do that. Or, we don't necessarily need an origin story, but Hollywood loves an origin story. And I think the one in Conan the Barbarian worked really well. It was awesome. I don't care that he has brown hair in the movie and he doesn't, those little details aren't a problem. It's that the music is one of the best. I mean, that's one of the best motion picture soundtracks ever. It still gives, I hate it when people say, oh my God, I got goosebumps, but I do. Whenever that starts, I do. And I don't care that, like, well, that's not how you fashion a sword. Whatever. It's pouring molten iron or steel into a thing and it looks wicked. It's cool. There's just so many iconic moments in that film. Even the lines, the crush your enemy lines, like, I get why people get exhausted. Like, that's not Howard's thing. He didn't say. I know it's more of a Genghis Khan thing to say, but it's iconic. So much about that film that is iconic. Ron Cobb's production design in that film is amazing. I don't think we will ever get a Hyborian age on screen that is going to look more authentic than it does in that film. So I think you combine that with an eclectic cast honestly, it's one of Schwarzenegger's best performances. It's James Earl Jones as, R.I.P. just passed. Like, he is an amazing villain. That is more compelling than Darth Vader, in my opinion. Even just thematically, like, that film is about companionship and friendship. It's like about going back and, like, standing up for your people and rescuing your dudes. And, like, I don't know. It's like, it is different from Howard in that Conan is this indomitable thing who doesn't necessarily need people's help very much. His superpower is eventually winning or eventually conquering. And this movie's a different beast, but, like, my God, it's like an important movie for bodybuilders. It's an important film for composers, production design. And it is the reason that I ever picked up, weights, or that I ever wanted to go run around in the woods. Like, I don't know, man. It's an incredible film. I watch it every year and I will continue to do so.
What would you like to see happen in the next Conan film or TV adaptation?
This is something I used to think about a lot and have somewhat stopped. Not that I don't ever fantasize about it. It's that, look, I honestly think I would like to see Conan in animation next. And I'd like to see it. I would like to see it from an animator that really gets it. I think that we have sort of the specter of the Arnold films hanging over, and it's going to be really tough. It's tough to kind of get the general public past that and to introduce someone new. I mean, how do you even cast Conan? It's really tough. And I think that like even Jason Momoa looked the part and he moved the part. And I think there's aspects where he kind of captured a bit of that. I think it's kind of total horseshit where people are like, that was exactly Howard's Conan. No, it wasn't. But there was elements of that I thought really worked. Animation would be good because then you're coming in with a new medium and you're kind of showing what's possible, and you're less concerned about a budget as far as exotic locales go. Conan can be a very expensive thing to do, man. You're talking about shining kingdoms spread across the world. That's expensive. But an animated bit, something where you take one of Howard's best stories that just has one of those iconic scenes, like maybe with Thack, who decides, you know what, I'm going to do, like, so you could do so much with visual storytelling. That's kind of what I want to see. If you were going to adapt something, for me, I would love to see Beyond the Black River probably be my number one choice, somewhere to start. I don't know if you've seen Primal by Genndy Tartakovsky. Like, that to me that's the most sort of Conan, well, not even necessarily Conan, but there's so much Robert E. Howard in that, that I would love to, I'd like to see something in that vein. That would be amazing.
Lastly, Matt, can you give us all right here, right now, a demonstration of the game? Show us all how easy and fun it is to play.
Okay, Conan the Hyborian Age. Here is your character sheet. The character sheet is for you, the player. This guy is named Angus. So you got your name, you've got your origin. This is not a class-based game, but you kind of get a starting package in the form of your character's origin. You also have 4 stats in this game, only 4. We've tried to break it down to the raw essentials. Might is, of course, a measure of physical strength, used not only during combat when making melee attacks and inflicting damage, but also for climbing, swimming, lifting, or any other physical actions. You can imagine Conan has a pretty high might stat. Edge is a measure of the character's physical sharpness, deftness, intuition, alertness, dexterity, hand-eye coordination, situational awareness, hiding, detecting people who are hiding. This is something that's going to affect your ranged combat capabilities, and it's something that's going to affect your actual defensibility, like how well you can not be hit. After Edge, we have the Grit stat. Grit is essentially your physical... your character's pain tolerance, stamina, constitution, resistance to poison or elements, or perhaps even your ability to withstand pressure. This is something that will inform your stamina points, which is another thing we will look at in a bit. Really important to your survivability and how much damage you can take and how much the world will whoop your ass. Finally, we have your Wits stat. Wits is kind of a combination of intelligence and charisma. This is something that sorcerers are going to need. This is something that allows you to influence people, convince them of things, scare them, and it directly relates to your ability to cast spells. Okay, next up we have skills.
This is this area right
Yeah.
here. Okay.
Yeah. Next up we have skills. Skills are basically the progression element in this game. As you get experience points from completing tales, you will be able to essentially cash those in to upgrade your character. This is a sword and sorcery game. It's not about you getting a magic sword. It's about you becoming the magic sword, as it were. What that means is essentially you can buy these skills that will make your character exceptional in particular ways. So we look here on this fella, we have charge. That means you can spend one of your stamina points and make a move action followed by a melee attack, and it only counts as one. This makes you more versatile in combat, able to basically kill more stuff more quickly. And this guy has also taken Brawler, which increases the damage of all melee attacks by +1. As you can tell, this is a guy who's up close and personal in combat, and so he's taken skills to do that. That said, the progression in this game, there's really no limits other than sorcerers, which we have made it so that essentially you cannot make a Conan who also casts spells. We wanted to keep things on brand and on theme. But other than that, if you wanted a character who can be super intimidating but isn't actually very tough, you can do that. There's very few limits as to what you can and can't do with progression, so it's, I guess we could say buffet style. Up next, we have stamina points and the flex die. These are the sort of unique elements of this system, and all you do is you take your stat value and you add it to the result of a dice roll. So here, this is obviously a pre-generated character, which we will provide and which are provided in the quick start, but players will also find they can make their own characters very easily, very quickly, and that can be, archetypes or can be weird specific creations of their own. Angus is kind of he's kind of a Conan facsimile, and so he's got a high might value. Your stats, generally speaking, are going to be no higher than 6 to start, and absolutely no higher than 8. In this case, he starts at a 5, which makes him mighty. He's got a 4 edge, which means he's pretty good at sneaking, hiding. He's got a decent defense. He's also got a high grit value, which means he can take a lot of hate. Wits is not the strong point for Angus here. That means he's not necessarily going to be too good against spells, and he certainly wouldn't be someone who can cast them. In this game, each player character has 2 defenses. One is your physical, and one is against sorcery. Your physical defense is against arrows, swords, stones, whatever. Your sorcery defense is against the sort of eldritch machinations, the less tangible things. Your sorcery defense is your ability to withstand the influence of spells or damage from spells, and interestingly, if you are a sorcerer, you're probably going to have a high wit stat, and your high wits is actually going to give you a higher defense against spells. Similarly, if you have a high edge stat, your physical defense is going to be better because you're better at dodging things. As with many other RPGs, you have only so much damage you can take. In this game, we call them life points because that is what we called them in our board game. Similar to hit points you might find in other RPGs. And these, basically, once you hit 0, you die. So with these life points, you will see actual and max. Max is the top value you can achieve. Actual is where you currently are. So maybe you got bit by a hyena. Your actual hit points are going to differ from your max. Moving along, we've got our weapons. Weapon types are probably better detailed elsewhere, but in this game we really went out of our way to sort of balance the options so that there is a particular reason to use any given weapon based on categories. So there's not really objectively poor choices. For armor in this game, armor does not make you harder to hit, but it will sop up some of the damage that comes in. So you have an armor rating, and whatever the armor rating is for your armor, you basically subtract that number from any damage that you've taken. Moving along, we have the skills that you buy. Now the skills in this game represents your progression. So as you complete tales, you get experience points. You're going to be able to cash those in for skills that are basically permanent enhancements for your character. Some of these are passive. They might make you harder to hit, but some of them will give you combat techniques such as attack and move during the same action, or move and attack during the same action, or perhaps it's something like a spell that you have learned. Angus has decided he wants to smash down this door. The GM determines that is going to be a difficulty of 8, and so Angus has to make a roll because this is an action that is in doubt. So to check, he is going to take his might value of 5, and he is going to add it to his stat die, which is a d6. So I'm going to roll this d6 and add 5. Okay, Angus rolled a 3 to smash down that door. He adds that number to his might value, which is a 5. That means he got an 8. And since the GM said he only needed an 8, he was successful. He smashes down the door. Good job, Barbarian. Okay, in interest of keeping things streamlined, checks and attacks are resolved the same way. The only difference is that with a check, the GM gives you a determined value that you need to hit. If you're making an attack against something, you are going to be going against its physical defense rating. If you're casting a spell on them, you would be going against their sorcery defense rating. So it's all very familiar as you go through. So with Angus here, he's going to make a melee attack with a sword. So he is going to try and cut the head off of this hyena. Angus, same as with his check, he will look at his might stat value, which is a 5, and he will pick up a die, his stat die, which is a d6. He's going to roll it, and he is going to add that to his value. So let's see how he does. Oh, he sadly rolled a 1, but this is just a hyena, and he has a stat of 5, meaning his total is 6. This hyena required only a 6. This hyena has a 6 physical defense. So guess what? Angus hits the hyena. Why play this game? Number 1, it is easy to learn. It is epic to play. Reason number 2, it is GM friendly. Reason number 3, it is steeped in swords and sorcery. Reason number 4, we brought in all the Conan veterans that we could. Reason number 5, this game is for the RPG curious and veterans alike.
Plug-in for me, it's Walk On Worlds, available now on Amazon if you like sword and sorcery books, especially in sexy little pocketbook format. I would like to plug the Rogues in the House podcast. Conan, the Hyborian Age RPG, hits Kickstarter on October 15th. Sign up on the Kickstarter page so you do not miss the notification.
This was an absolute blast. Thank you so much for your time. Take care, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. It was a joy. I mean, come on, man. Official Conan the Barbarian YouTube channel. Let's go. Bucket list.
Wow, guys, that was incredible. How fun was that? Monolith Games, new Conan RPG. Link in the description. So get on that while you can. Thank you so much, guys. Please like and subscribe. I'm Sean Curley. Crawl back for more next time.